Happiness is something we all want. It's uncomfortable to be sad for prolonged periods of time and is not conducive to a healthy life. So I've devised many different strategies that you can use to combat this unhappiness. The first of which is by improving your social life. Every human needs a social life, but not every human has one. And there's an expectation in society that everyone just develops friendships and fulfills their social needs by themselves. And the weird thing is that there aren't many dedicated structures that focus on how to actually create relationships. Often people will give the advice,
stop looking and you'll eventually find someone.
Or they might say,
focus on yourself first and other people will come into your life.
This is terrible advice. Why is this terrible advice? Because if you stop looking, you won't find anything, and if you focus on yourself, then you won't be focused on other people. And really the main thing you want to focus on when you're looking for other people is looking for other people. We're going to get a girlfriend in a hypothetical demonstration using my strategy, but this strategy can be applied to any kind of new relationship, such as a friendship or developing a closer bond with a relative. There are 3 parts to this plan. Part 1 is new circumstances. This is the fundamental part of creating a new relationship. If you're currently sat alone watching this video wondering,
why don't I have friends?
Then you've answered your own question. If you're sat at home ruminating over the connections you haven't made or worrying about the integrity of the connections you have, then you aren't going to be making any new friends. But now you might be wondering, how do I create new circumstances? And the answer is that there are many ways to do this, and you need to think about this for yourself, especially as you become older. It can take a little thinking outside of the box. So if you've established new circumstances, you're ready for part 2, and part 2 is opportunity. This part simply acknowledges the chance part of relationships. You aren't going to get along with all people. To be honest, if you're anything like me, then you're not going to get along with most people. As I always say, you know what I really don't like? People I don't know well. You know what most people are? People I don't know well. But acknowledging this allows you to identify that sometimes interactions will go well and sometimes they won't. And when you identify a successful interaction, this is where you take the opportunity to realize its potential and develop it. And now you have the beginnings of a relationship. This brings us to part 3, time. Now that you've entered new circumstances and you've had the opportunity to meet like-minded people with whom you get along, the relationship has already started forming. Now you only need to let it develop, and this just takes time, and if you are regularly and successfully interacting, then the relationship will continue to form, and then,
oh my god, I have a girlfriend!
So you see, if you take my strategy into the real world, you'll find that you cannot get a girlfriend. Remember, a significant part of this strategy is realizing that these things are a choice. Finding new circumstances is a choice you make, and while not necessarily an easy choice to enact, what's important is realizing that the control lies with you. You just have to be proactive. Which brings me on to another way to improve your happiness, learned helplessness. This is a concept that once understood frees you from rumination, negative thought spirals and feelings of general hopelessness. But what is learned helplessness? Well, say you're looking for a job and you attend an interview. You think the interview went okay, but then you find out that you didn't get the job. Maybe you're a little discouraged.
Oh man.
But that's understandable because you did everything you could and it didn't work out how you hoped. So you try again and you interview again and the same thing happens.
Oh man.
You did everything you could, improved your CV, your interview skills, and thought the interview went well. Still, you didn't get the job. Now you're discouraged again. This pattern continues and before you know it you've had many interviews and none of them have led to a job.
I really thought one would lead to a job.
Now you're really demotivated. You begin to believe that maybe you just can't get a job, that maybe the universe is against you, that everyone hates you and you're just terrible at interviews, your CV is awful, you have no job prospects and no future. So you stop trying, you stop applying to jobs, you half-heartedly doubt any potential jobs, and now you aren't getting any interviews, and when people ask how the job search is going, you tell them in a defeated tone that you haven't had any luck, that you don't know why but you can't find a job.
I don't know why, I just can't find a job.
Well done, you've learned helplessness. Because of the repeated failures, you've been conditioned to assume you'll always fail, and this stops you from even trying. But this is not reality. Reality is that no matter how many times you fail at something, the chances are still the same the next time. You may have been unlucky in one instance, but that has no bearing on the future. It's even the same with relationships. I may have been rejected 100 times, but my chances are still 1 in a million. But by being able to identify learned helplessness, you can shift your perspective to a more positive and objective outlook of reality, and avoid being sucked into negative thought spirals. Which brings me on to negative thought spirals. These really are very detrimental to your happiness as they cause you to become consumed by destructive thoughts that only detract from your well-being. If you start to enter a negative thought spiral, you need pants. A practical approach to negative thought spirals. What did you think I meant? But so by this I mean that once you've identified a negative thought spiral, you need strategies to take you out of it. A great way of doing this is by distracting your mind, whether by reading, watching a film, a TV show, or listening to a podcast. Even after doing all of these things, you may still feel as though your general skill at human interaction is underleveled for this point in your life. And if that's true, there's only one way to improve: level grinding. Frequent interaction is the only way to improve your social skills, and if you are committed to more consistently interacting, your skills will greatly improve over time, and eventually be barely acceptable in broader society. Finally, don't worry. Everything I've talked about can be disconcerting, but it's okay. Feeling completely happy all the time is not realistic or possible. Humans experience a range of emotions on a daily basis. Just remember, my advice is not based on fact, has no evidence to support it, and is the result of questionably thorough research. See you next time.